The search team found the camp still burning. The fire hadn't gone out. The sleeping bag was unzipped, and dinner, half eaten, was sitting beside the tent. But the hiker who made it all was gone. Rangers followed footprints leading 20 feet into the tree line before they simply stopped. No drag marks, no animal prints, no sign of a struggle. Just bare soil and silence. Later, when investigators recovered his trail camera, they expected to see a bear, maybe a mountain lion. Instead, they found 3 photos, each one taken seconds apart. The first showed the camp. The second, the man's silhouette looking into the woods. The third, it showed nothing but darkness and 2 glowing eyes, hovering higher than any person should have been standing. That was the last image he ever took. And when forensic analysts tried to pull the raw data from the SD card, something else appeared in the metadata. Coordinates to a part of the forest that isn't even listed on official ranger maps. For decades, hikers have vanished across this same stretch of wilderness. Most cases go unsolved. Some are written off as accidents, others quietly buried by authorities. But the evidence left behind in this one? It suggests something else might be hunting inside those woods.
This story takes us deep into Oregon's Willamette National Forest. Nearly 1.5 million acres of dense pine, broken only by logging roads and old ranger stations. To most people, it's a paradise. To others, it's a place that doesn't want to be found. Over the past 30 years, more than 24 hikers have vanished inside this region. Each case sharing the same unnerving detail. No trace of departure. Their gear, tents, and food left untouched, as if they stepped out for a moment and never came back. Locals call this area the Silent Timberline, not because of folklore, but because of what happens when you're there alone. Birds stop singing. The air thickens. Even your own footsteps start to sound wrong, like something else is pacing them. Authorities blame poor weather, rough terrain, and wildlife. And sure, out here, those explanations make sense. On paper. But the deeper you look into the missing persons reports, the less sense any of it makes. One ranger's log entry from 2004 notes, "Second search team heard distant whistling at night. No source located. Dogs refused to approach ravine perimeter." Another, written 5 years later, mentions unidentified thermal signatures. Bipedal, but much larger than human. For a long time, these notes never left ranger archives. They weren't meant for the public. Until now. Tonight we're going to follow the trail of one man who entered that forest and left behind something that's now considered the most disturbing evidence ever recovered from a missing hiker case. His name was Ethan Walsh. Ethan Walsh was 32 years old, a wildlife photographer from Portland, known for spending weeks alone tracking animal behavior. He wasn't new to this. He'd hiked nearly every trail in Oregon's Cascade Range. On June 11th, 2022, Ethan checked in at the ranger station near Marion Forks. He signed the logbook at 7:42 a.m. Destination listed as South Ridge Loop, 3 days. He carried his camera, GPS tracker, a week of food, and an emergency beacon, standard for solo hikers. The weather that weekend was clear, unseasonably warm, not the kind of conditions that cause trouble. Around 4:30 p.m., Ethan texted his sister. "Almost back to Ridge. Lost light faster than expected. Might camp early." That was the last message ever received. When he didn't check out the next morning, rangers assumed a dead battery, But by day 2, a team was sent out. They located his truck, doors locked, gear inside untouched. His hiking permit was still on the dashboard. Roughly 2 miles into the South Ridge Loop, searchers found Ethan's camp. His tent was upright, sleeping bag half unrolled, small fire pit still black with ash, meaning it had burned out recently. But what disturbed the rescuers most was how orderly everything was. His camera bag was open but intact, his food supply untouched, and his hiking boots placed neatly beside the tent entrance, as if he'd taken them off before lying down. There were footprints, yes, leading away from camp. 10, maybe 12 paces into the forest. Then they stopped. Not faded, not washed out. Stopped. One rescuer later said, "It looked like he walked straight into the trees and just vanished." Dogs brought in on day 3 refused to go past that line. Handlers described them as anxious, trembling, fixated on something unseen. Even with strong scent samples, they wouldn't move forward. By the 5th day, the official search expanded 6 miles in every direction. Aerial drones, thermal imaging, river sweeps, nothing. No sign of a fall, no wildlife attack, no signal from his beacon. The only thing they recovered was his trail camera, wedged between 2 rocks near camp. Memory cards still intact. What they found on it would later become the most heavily debated piece of evidence in Oregon's search and rescue history.
By day 6, the search for Ethan Walsh had become one of the largest operations in Willamette Forest in over a decade. Over 40 volunteers, local sheriff units, and 2 state canine teams combed through nearly 20 square miles of terrain. Every ravine, creek bed, and deer trail within a 5-mile radius of his camp was swept twice. But what stood out most wasn't what they found, it was what they didn't. No torn clothing, no dropped gear, no footprints beyond that 12-step mark. Even his scent trail, according to the canine handlers, just ended. One handler described it in her report as, like the scent was cut off mid-air. That isn't a poetic exaggeration. It's the term they use when a trail has no decay gradient, as if the source simply vanished from the environment. Rangers began documenting anomalies almost immediately. At 9:13 p.m. on June 18th, 2 volunteers reported distant whistling echoing through the tree line. Rhythmic, 3 tones repeated every 15 seconds. They assumed it was another team signaling location, but no other group in the field confirmed sending any signal that night. A thermal drone dispatched the next morning picked up faint movement heat signatures along a ravine northwest of Ethan's camp. They were tall, upright, moving in short bursts, too large to be deer, but without the consistent stride pattern of a human. When teams reached the location an hour later, nothing. On the 4th night, an experienced ranger, Paul Hanley, noted something else. He wrote, "Canopy wind direction reversed twice within 30 minutes. Sudden temperature drop of 7 degrees. Entire sector silent." Hanley's been in forestry for 22 years. He doesn't write things like that lightly. As days passed, hope of finding Ethan alive faded, but the tone of the operation changed. The official focus was recovery. Unofficially, many just wanted out. Several volunteers refused to re-enter the area after nightfall. One even resigned mid-mission, saying, "We're not alone out here. Whatever took him, it's still moving." Slow pan over forest floor at dusk. Back at the ranger station, technicians began extracting the contents of Ethan's trail camera. 3 photos were already logged, the same ones shown in the initial reports. The camp at dusk, Ethan standing near the fire, and that 3rd image, the one showing a blurred, dark figure with reflective eyes.
But while running a data integrity check, the analyst found something strange. The storage volume didn't match. There was nearly 1.2 megabytes of unreferenced data, as if a fourth file had been deleted but not overwritten. Using forensic recovery software, they pulled a corrupted image fragment labeled DSC_4041.RAW. The timestamp placed it just 4 seconds after the last verified photo. The image was almost entirely black, just static and digital noise. But in the lower left corner, you could make out the edge of Ethan's tent, and beside it, something that looked like a shoulder, covered in coarse, dark texture, not skin, not cloth. A ranger who reviewed it later said it resembled animal hide, but denser, layered, like bark. When they enhanced the file metadata, another anomaly appeared. GPS coordinates embedded inside the image, pinpointing a location 3 miles northeast of Ethan's camp. The spot doesn't exist on public maps. Even the official topographic database had no listing for that grid. 2 days later, a small retrieval team was sent to investigate the coordinates. They expected nothing, maybe a glitch in the data. But the trek took them to a part of the forest that felt untouched. No paths, no footprints, no signs of logging or animal movement. Then they found the clearing. The trees opened into a perfect circle, roughly 20 meters wide. The ground bare, almost sterile, like nothing had grown there for decades. At the center lay fragments of metal, warped, blackened, some still carrying melted glass. And about 15 feet away, lodged upright between 2 stones, was Ethan's lens filter, the exact model confirmed by serial number on his equipment list. It was the only physical trace of him ever recovered. The footage and metadata were classified by the Forest Service within 24 hours. The official statement claimed digital corruption and GPS drift. But the technician who found the image resigned the same week. In a private interview later, he said something that's never left me. The image wasn't corrupted, he said. It was like something was standing between the camera and the light. Something that absorbed the flash instead of reflecting it. A year after Ethan Walsh vanished, another case emerged. Different person, same ridge. Almost the same set of circumstances. In July 2023, 29-year-old Megan Laird, a freelance travel vlogger from Seattle, arrived at Willamette Forest to film a solo weekend documentary on abandoned ranger trails. According to her itinerary, she planned to hike a short 3-mile loop, record campsite footage, and return by Sunday afternoon. She posted her last clip to Instagram around 5:12 p.m. The caption read, "Weird quiet tonight. Feels like the woods are listening." That was the last post she ever made. When Megan didn't return, local deputies launched a search almost immediately. Her parents had installed a GPS app on her phone for safety, but the signal was erratic. It showed her walking off the marked trail, then stopping for 6 hours straight before vanishing entirely. Her tent was found collapsed near the South Ridge Loop, the same section of forest where Ethan disappeared. Inside was her camera tripod, sleeping bag, and a lantern that had burned out mid-use. Rangers reviewing her SD card found 2 files, a short video and a single image. The image showed a blurry tree line, but the video, less than 10 seconds long, recorded just before sunset, captured something unsettling. The clip begins with Megan facing the camera, adjusting focus. Behind her, the forest fades into golden light. Then, halfway through, a faint clicking sound, like 2 stones tapping together, echoes from behind. She glances over her shoulder, frowns, and says, "Hello?" The audio peaks, The camera shifts, and the last frame shows the tree line moving. Not swaying, not shaking, moving, as if something massive was slipping between the trunks. The timestamp on that video places her disappearance just 3 days shy of the anniversary of Ethan's. Same ridge, same sequence of events, same silence before the vanishing. This time, though, something else appeared in the ranger data logs. At 2:47 a.m., during the search for Megan, a motion sensor camera 3 miles south of her camp triggered unexpectedly. It captured 5 seconds of footage. A dark figure crossing a clearing on 2 legs, head tilted slightly forward. No face, no visible clothing, just long, uneven strides and a shadow that seemed to shimmer at the edges, as if heat was distorting it. The footage was reviewed by wildlife experts at Oregon State. Their conclusion? Inconclusive human silhouette. Possible interference. But those who've studied the clip frame by frame noticed something chilling. The distance between the creature's footprints. Each step was almost 5.5 feet apart. When you strip away the mystery, the first instinct is to explain these disappearances logically. Predators, terrain, exposure, all common killers in the wilderness. But when biologists and forensic investigators reviewed the details from both Ethan Walsh and Megan Laird's cases, too many things refused to align with known patterns. For one, no trace of predation. In every documented mountain lion or bear attack, remains are found within a radius of less than half a mile. Bones, tracks, torn gear. Something always remains. But in these 2 cases, the ground was undisturbed. No drag marks, no feeding signs, no biological residue. Second, environmental silence. Studies from the U.S. Forest Acoustic Ecology Program show that sudden loss of ambient wildlife noise, known as acoustic void events, usually indicates predator presence or seismic vibration. But both regions where Ethan and Megan vanished recorded neither. There was no seismic activity, no storm, no explanation for the dead air recorded by search microphones. Rangers even tested barometric data. A 7-degree temperature drop was logged just before both disappearances, within the same grid zone, a phenomenon rare outside of mountain storm fronts. To make sense of it, the Forest Service consulted wildlife tracker Dr. Alan Mercier. His field notes, later leaked online, read, "If this is animal behavior, it's coordinated, deliberate, like something waiting for isolation." Cryptid enthusiasts were quick to label the presence Sasquatch activity, pointing to stride length and infrared distortion. But thermal imaging experts disagreed, saying the heat signature resembled not fur, but a refractive layer, similar to mirage effects caused by electromagnetic interference. Now that last detail caught the attention of a very different kind of expert. Not a ranger, but a physicist. Dr. Lena Ruiz from Oregon State's Atmospheric Sciences Department analyzed the metadata embedded in Ethan's trail camera photo, the one with the mysterious coordinates. She noticed irregularities in the EXIF data timestamps, microsecond offsets that implied interference from a fluctuating magnetic field. In simple terms, she said the camera's sensor was seeing something bending light at a local scale. Not invisibility, but distortion. The kind you'd expect near an intense electromagnetic pulse. Her conclusion wasn't supernatural, but it wasn't comforting either. "Whatever's out there," she said, "it doesn't act like a living thing. It behaves like a field, a presence that moves, reacts, and feeds on energy. Whether that energy comes from electronics or people remains unknown."